Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming today. You know, I think that what we want to talk about today is the difference that 2 years has made, what the difference that balance has brought to Minnesota. 2 years ago, we had a $2.1 billion tax increase that we forced on the people of Minnesota. We had taxpayer-funded bonuses for MNsure executives in a failing program. And we brought the taxpayers of Minnesota a luxury office building for politicians. That's what the Democrat-controlled legislature and governor's office brought to Minnesotans. But this year, we came forward with a bipartisan budget with the goal of keeping government spending in line with family budgets, because that's what we believe Minnesotans expect from us. In the area of education, we passed bipartisan legislation that brought over $400 million of new spending in education, about $1.3 billion over current funding levels. 72% of that money was on the formula. The governor in his original budget, along with the DFL Senate, brought forward 1% increases on the formula. Our final budget brought a 1.5% and 2% increase on the per pupil formula, far exceeding what any of the branches had brought forward in the beginning. Our budget also provided $60 million for early education initiatives, scholarship, and school pre-K. It streamlined teacher licensure to ensure teacher shortages in greater Minnesota were eased. It made tuition more affordable for over 400,000 MNsCU students. One of the priorities we brought to the table as well, coming forward in this session, was aging Minnesotans and their quality of life. And we are proud that in our budget, we were able to come to bipartisan agreement on $138 million for nursing homes to reform rate of reimbursement assists long-term care facilities in greater Minnesota, along with $17 million for state veterans homes. In roads and bridges, we started the discussion of long-term transportation plans. We defeated the very unpopular Democrat gas tax increase proposal, and the budget includes $12.5 million for cities under $5,000, a new investment that helps greater Minnesota. We're proud of the bipartisan agreement that we came to and that we got our work done in time.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, I hope everybody's recovered a little bit from the lack of sleep at the end of session. We're really proud of the work that we did this legislative session. It, I think, is a good example that shows that divided government in the state of Minnesota can work. And frankly, I said early on in one of the very first press conferences right in this room after we took the majority that divide and conquer politics in Minnesota need to be over. And I think we've shown that they are. Democrats, when they controlled all of state government, were constantly pitting one group of people against another. And frankly, we think that's un-Minnesotan. We worked together in a way that I think Minnesotans can be proud of. I was happy to hear Senator Bach say after the conclusion of session that he thinks this is probably the most bipartisan session in history. And it really is. The budget bills that we put on the governor's desk obviously had to pass a Republican House and a Democrat Senate, and we hope that all of those will earn the governor's support. We worked with the governor very closely to meet any concerns that he had as we were approaching the end of session, and I think that the product that we put forth really shows that we can solve the problems that Minnesotans sent us here to solve, prioritize the issues that they care about, putting new money into K-12 education, reforming the way we reimburse nursing homes. For me personally, this is probably, I think, the crown and the jewel in the crown of this session. The fact that we have reformed the way we reimburse our nursing homes, putting $138 million of new money into long-term care with reforms that, frankly, are generational. This is something that's going to make a difference for nursing homes that have been struggling and closing out in greater Minnesota. And frankly, it's going to help those in our long-term care facilities take care of our loved ones. And this will make an unbelievable difference in their lives, so and in their quality of life. We're really, really proud of that fact. Obviously, on transportation, we had hoped to come out with a long-term transportation plan. We actually are proud of the fact that we did a few things in transportation. Number one, we put new money, $12.5 million for cities under 5,000. It's the first time that we've done that, and the first time that those cities have received money for their road and bridge infrastructure. We think that's really important. This is a particular because it's cities under 5,000 will help folks out in greater Minnesota with their transportation needs. Ultimately, we had to back away from that priority when Democrats made it conditional on a gas tax. We know how harmful a gas tax is to Minnesota families. We know how regressive it is. It hurts low and middle income families much more than wealthy folks. And at a time when Minnesota has a budget surplus, Democrats' proposal to raise the largest gas tax increase in state history just wasn't appropriate. So unfortunately, they made a transportation plan contingent on increasing the gas tax, and that was something that we know Minnesotans just can't live with. So we were able to put some money into roads and bridges in a small way. Of course, the existing funding sources are all there, and MnDOT will continue to invest in improving our road and bridge infrastructure. And we're going to come back next session with a comprehensive plan again, and a resolve to solve this problem on a long-term basis. And I think that we can get that accomplished. On education, we're really proud of the bill that we put forth. The position that we ended up in, $400 million above base, puts new money, real money, into classrooms. I think about $200, a little more than $200 per pupil over the biennium in new money for our Minnesota schools. Really important. Along with that, we've got reforms in these bills. We streamlined the teacher licensure to help with teacher shortage problems out in greater Minnesota. And in higher education, as Representative Peppin said, we made tuition more affordable for 400,000 students at MnSCU. We were really able to accomplish a lot in making higher education more affordable in the state of Minnesota. We put $60 million of new money. This is a record amount of money into early education initiatives. We know the governor's passionate about this. We are as well. And that's why together with the Democrats in the Senate, Republicans in the House prioritized our young learners and put a record amount of new money into early education initiatives. So all in all, we are very happy that we have finished the session on time, got our work done on time, protected Minnesotans by preventing an unnecessary gas tax, invested in our education system with new money into classrooms, and reformed the way that we reimburse our nursing homes to take care of our aging loved ones. So with that, I think we'll take some questions.
In your statement yesterday, it seemed like you were talking about a way to avoid a special session. Were you talking about something other than signing all the bills?
Well, it's certainly our hope that the governor will change his mind on vetoing the education bill. I know yesterday he announced that he had vetoed it. He doesn't have it yet. I actually haven't signed it yet, so it's not on his way to him. I think the revisor's office just finished it up late yesterday. I will do that today, and it will be on the governor's desk likely later today. We certainly urge him to sign that bill. I know his resolve seems pretty strong to veto the bill. I understand that. We did have conversations in the 11th hour before the end of session trying to come to some agreement to put some additional money in. The bill that we passed had $400 million. He wanted $550. He did back away from his pre-K proposal. I think understanding that an issue like that just takes more time in the legislature. It isn't that folks don't support a good education for our young learners. It's just a matter of needing to build the support, and unfortunately that didn't happen this legislative session, and it's not on Republicans. That bill didn't pass out of the Republican House, but remember, it also didn't pass out of the Republican Senate. The Democrat Senate. Just in the last couple of days of the session, a bipartisan group of senators, I think it was 7 or 8 Republicans and 7 or 8 Democrats, sent a letter to the governor asking him to sign that bill. That bill represents what we think Minnesota schools want, what school districts want, what school boards and administrators want, which is more money on the formula. We're about 75% higher in the money we're putting on the formula than even the governor was in his budget proposal. When school districts talk about their needs, that's the number one thing that they need. And it also provides them the ability to make decisions at the local level for what's best in their district. So that's what this bill does. That's where its priorities are. And we hope the governor will consider signing it.
But in your letter, you said you wanted to speak with the governor, try to resolve the issue so he could sign the bill. What could that possibly be?
Well, I don't know. Obviously, in the final hours of session, we were having discussions with the governor and his staff. We actually, he backed away from pre-K, but still wanted $150 million more money. We actually said, we'll give you $100 million more. We'll put more money on the formula first, because that's what our members want, and we know that's what the Democrat members of the House and Senate want as well, because that's what school districts want. So we said we would go to 2 and 2 on the formula, and the other $37 million or almost $40 million we can put into early education or early childhood education initiatives. And the governor did not take that.
So do you think that you can say something to allow him to sign the bill?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where they're at. He was at 550, we were at 400, we came to 500. We met him 2/3 of the way there in the final hours right before the end of session. The governor came down 25 and said, we can't do it. Well, that's okay. It's unfortunate that he walked away from 2 and 2 on the formula. I assume that we can take up our conversations from where we left off, and that we're not going to start from scratch.
The governor said yesterday, if I may, pardon me for following up, the governor said yesterday that I realize Republicans hate public schools.
What does that say?
Stand up for public schools. And I think the bipartisan proposal we crafted did, because it reflected all of the top priorities that public schools brought to the House and the Senate Education Committees. From the beginning of the session, they have asked for more money on the formula. They have asked for more money in QComp, or the alternative pay system, which provides some professional development money for schools. An additional $9.5 million were put into that. A number of schools have asked for money to help them with their facilities and maintenance needs. Almost $32 million was put into that program this biennium, and it's going to continue to grow in the next biennium as well. So we did address public schools' top priorities, and I'm a proud public school parent. My 2 girls have both been through public schools. I've got one still in the public school for another couple of weeks until she graduates. So, I'm not going to shortchange a system where my own children, the thing most precious to me, goes to school. And I just think that's not a responsible statement on the part of the governor.
I want to follow up on that one as well. The governor, I understand that he's passionate, but as I have understood through this entire session, we are one leg of a 3-legged stool. I actually, just in the final hours, came 2/3 of the way to his position. Right now, we're the ones showing that we're willing to compromise. We're the ones showing that we're willing to work with the governor. And frankly, the rhetoric of saying that Republicans don't like public school, my guess is if you ask the governor now, he would probably retract that statement and apologize for it. I think that is absolutely outrageous. The budget that we put forward is exactly what the school districts are asking for, more money on the formula. So what we need to do is show that we're leaders, and the governor needs to be a leader as well. And he absolutely should apologize for that comment. And he needs to stand up and be a leader. I have no reason to believe, and the governor and I have a very respectful relationship. We get along very well. I have no reason to believe that we can't work out the small differences between our positions here on the education bill, and make sure that we're giving our school districts the certainty that they need as they prepare for the next school year.
So how would you propose doing that? How do you work out these differences? Understanding the governor has more control at this point moving forward. What's your role?
Well, I don't know if he has, well, I guess that's, maybe that's his perspective. We're going to continue to advocate for what school districts are asking for. We're willing to be flexible. We're willing to compromise with the governor, and we have done that. I think the conversations we had, just even in the final hours of session, demonstrate that. I assume that we can pick up where we left off, and that we can, wrap this up fairly quickly. But we'll see, it probably is a good idea too if everybody takes a little time off here and gets some rest and we'll have some conversations and certainly I said the governor and I have a very good relationship. We may not agree on issues all the time, but we do respect each other. I will be advocating if we do put more money into K-12 education than what passed out of this bill, out of the House and the Senate on a bipartisan basis. If we do end up putting more money in, I will be advocating for that money to go on the formula, not elsewhere, because that's what school districts are asking for. That's what school boards are asking for. That's what parents are asking for. They want more money in every classroom in the state, not a situation where we're putting kind of underfunded mandates on school districts at a time when they're already kind of recovering from that over the last 2 years.
So if you pick up where you left off, do you consider pre-K off the table at this point?
Well, the governor took it off the table on the final night of session. I don't know if he moves back to his original position. I'm not sure, but I haven't talked to the governor yet since the end of session.
On the radio this morning, the governor said that you were outstanding to work with. Is that a mutual feeling?
Yes, I will. I'm going to be honest. I get a little frustrated with the governor because, and I understand his passion, and I have said this to the governor, so I'm not saying anything to anybody that I haven't talked to him about. I place it a little bit at the governor's feet that his pre-K initiative didn't have the legislative support, and it wasn't Republicans. It was, it was Democrats alike. It didn't pass the Senate or the House, and it really is the governor's job, if this is his #1 priority, to earn the support and earn the votes through the legislative process. We've been here for 5 months, and if that didn't happen in 5 months, I'm not sure what's going to be different. But I will tell you, to answer your question directly, yes, I have a great relationship with the governor. We may not always agree, but we do work well together, and we treat each other very respectfully. So he has been good to work with from that respect, and I don't think this will be difficult to finish out here and get a bill that he can sign.
Speaker, if you're going to talk him into signing the bill, and you're going to give it to him today, you probably don't have much time. Do you have a meeting arranged with him, or has he agreed not to sign it until you chew on his ear a bit?
No, he's going to likely get the bill later today. I hope that he and I can visit over the next couple of days. I assume he's probably not going to sign any of the budget bills right away today or veto them. So we will try to talk at some point in the next couple of days.
As soon as he gets it. Have you tried to talk him out of that?
I haven't yet, but we have. I shouldn't say that. I have. I was at the governor's office. What was it? The Monday, Sunday. You know how those last few days of session run together. That afternoon we had a good conversation, a really good conversation, very respectful conversation. And I said, Governor, please consider signing this bill. It does have legislative support. One of the problems that his initiative faces in the House is that if there is money there and there's money available for his initiative, if you put an amendment on the floor that says instead of doing that, we want to put that same amount of money on the formula so school districts can decide how to spend it so that we can put more money in every classroom for every kid, almost every legislator will vote for that proposal over the pre-K proposal. So, because that's what school districts are asking for, and that's what helps every student in the state of Minnesota. So it's not, this isn't me or, Republicans. This really is legislators support putting money on the formula, not putting it in this other place.
But to be clear, you're going out and campaigning, telling how great a job you did today instead of trying to talk to the governor and convince him not to sign the bill.
Well, I'm not campaigning. No, you know what? We're going to go out and answer questions and talk to folks out in Minnesota, as we often do after these legislative sessions end. And we're going to have conversations about some of the great stuff that we did. And it's not all going to be on education. We're going to talk about this generational reform on nursing homes and some of the stuff we did on roads and bridges. And of course, we're going to talk about education and how we're going to put more than $200 per pupil more into K-12 education. I think that's a big deal, and I think Minnesotans appreciate the work that we've done, and they appreciate the fact that we've worked together to accomplish these good things.
Kurt Daudt, at the 11th hour, the governor dropped his insistence on universal pre-K. There was no support for it among the House GOP. Why is it then, right, they voted against it, but in addition to that.
It's anywhere, guys. This isn't on the Republicans. I mean, the governor can try to make this a partisan thing. He can try to divide. This isn't about dividing. Yeah.
So my question is, if he dropped his insistence on universal pre-K at the 11th hour, why not then agree to what he had put forth?
Well, you know, we went 2/3 of the way. And you know, the governor chose to walk away from that. We were putting 2 and 2 on the formula, which is what school districts want. You know, we were awfully close, and I assume we'll pick up there. But you know, I came 2/3 of the way. The governor came, I don't know, 20, not even 20% of the way, 10% of the way, 15% of the way. And I'm the one not compromising. No, I think people can see that we are more than willing to compromise. We're more than willing to work with the governor. And I think we can wrap this up in fairly short order. The governor seems, you know, to understand that getting the votes for that pre-K initiative in the legislature, whether it be Democrats in the Senate or Republicans in the House, or Democrats in the House and Republicans in the Senate, it's a heavy lift because legislators support putting more money in the formula. That's the bottom line.
To follow up on that,
It appears that pre-K was not the hang-up. If he dropped that and you still couldn't reach a deal.
Well, first of all, I would just say that I would strongly encourage the governor to not veto this bill. We've been in negotiations for a long time, and we were willing to move a lot on education. Keep in mind that the Senate passed 1 and 1 on the formula, 1 and 1% increase in the formula. That's what the governor's budget was the whole time. We went all the way up to 1.5%, and we were lower than that. We went up to 1.5% and 2% on the formula. In the final hours, we were willing to go up to 2% and 2% on the formula. Our bill had $60 million in early childhood initiatives and pre-K initiatives. We were willing to go up almost another $40 million in pre-K initiatives. But yet we didn't get some of the reforms that we wanted as well. So we feel, from our perspective, we feel like we went 3/4 of the way, and there wasn't a lot of movement on the other side. And that's why the governor got letters from a bipartisan group of legislators on both sides of the aisle saying, you know, we encourage you to sign this letter. It's a very good bill, and we did listen to the school districts, and that's what they wanted. They wanted more money on the formula, and we provided more money for additional pre-K initiatives as well. So it's disappointing, and I really hope that the governor will still reconsider this after. Hopefully cooler heads will prevail, and he will reconsider this.
Representative Peppin, you just said that there was still some issues in pre-K with regard to some reforms that you wanted. Is there a non-money sticking point still on pre-K based on that last offer that you were talking about?
No, I think, you know, at the end of the day, time sort of ran out. We were still talking, but we had a long time, and then I think it was after 11 when the governor's staff came and had some initial discussions, and I think that. Looking at where we're at, considering the money that we already passed, it's a $1.3 billion in additional spending over the current year spending. And at some point, you have to say how much do you continue to go up? And there just wasn't a lot of movement on behalf of the governor. The whole week and a half of negotiations, there just wasn't much movement there. And
So in that final offer, the rub really was just money, not policy.
Well, I mean, like I said, we were $100 million. So the $63 million would have been 2 and 2 on the formula, which is a lot higher than we initially had budgeted for, and that was left about $37 million for additional programs, pre-K, flexible pre-K programs. So, we've moved a lot, and we hope that the governor will reconsider.
So is the governor's
If I could just clarify, I think it's important for people to understand where I think kind of the sticking point has been. Again, we put $60 million of new money into early childhood. That's in addition to what we have been doing and what we call part of the base. If you add everything that's in the base, it's over $240 million north of that in what we invest in early childhood in the state of Minnesota through our education budget. With the new money we put in and what was in the base, we estimate that we are reaching about 45,000 low-income children through scholarships, and again, that we call, it's called school readiness in the statute. School readiness is school pre-K, just so people understand, it's the same thing. It's pre-K for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, but the program allows schools to target low-income children and charge families of greater incomes on a sliding fee. The governor wants to have it free for all 4-year-olds. And if a school doesn't do it free for all 4-year-olds, they would lose all of their money for school pre-K. So when he says voluntary, he's saying voluntary if you agree to do free for all 4-year-olds, otherwise you lose all of your money for school readiness or school pre-K. So it's important for people to understand the distinction here. He is insisting that it be free for all 4-year-olds regardless of economic means of the family. That's his concept, and he's still having a hard time backing away from that.
And I understand he's also insisting on licensed teachers in those programs, and is that a sticking point?
Yes, he is insisting on that. And we already have significant teacher shortages, and that is very acute, and especially in rural areas, to have a licensed preschool teacher is going to be difficult to find, and I think it's not a realistic goal at this point in time.
So you would oppose a licensed teacher requirement?
Yes, because it would cause severe, we have a severe teacher shortage, and those teachers just aren't here, and they're not licensed in the state of Minnesota at this time.
Mr. Speaker, education obviously is the big issue here, but there are other things that didn't get done by the end of the session. If there is a special session to resolve this, are there other things that you hope to accomplish other than the education bill at the special session? If so, what?
Well, you know, we didn't pass a bonding bill. We had a very small bonding bill for some emergency flood relief issues in a few different places in the state. Also the money to continue or finish the capital restoration. So we did have a small bonding bill kind of teed up at the end. House Democrats indicated that they wouldn't put up the votes for it, so we did not end up taking it up on the last night. I think we would continue talking about that. Also the legacy bill, we passed it out of the House, but they didn't get to it in the Senate in time. So that's another one that, and I think the governor has a strong interest in passing that. The money for his buffers is carried in that legacy bill. So I have a feeling he's going to want that legacy bill. The language for the buffers was in the environment bill, but the money for it was in the Clean Water Fund and the legacy bill. So I have a feeling those will be the bills that will likely be on the table.
Highway 53 relocation, is that still, is there a chance that that could happen?
Yeah, the authorizing language for, and I don't know if that specific project, I think it would be up to MnDOT, but we did have some trunk highway bond authorization language that would have also been in that bill. That normally would have traveled in the transportation bill, but because of the way we did it, the transportation bill ended up being a Senate file, and the Senate amended it on and then sent it back to us, so it couldn't carry that. Of course, tax provisions have to originate in the House, so it has to be a House file. So that's why we were putting the trunk highway bond authorization language onto that bonding bill.
Mr. Speaker, if you can't convince the governor not to veto the bills, what's your thoughts on a special session? Do you want this sooner? Do you want it later? And where?
I guess I would prefer sooner than later. You know, and I was the one originally that said we'll have it on the front lawn of the Capitol. I was willing to do it without a tent, but if we need a tent, I guess we can do that too. In all seriousness, the Constitution says that we have to do our session in St. Paul, so we will do it in St. Paul somewhere. I think that there are folks looking for a venue now, and I think there's a few different places that we could look at. But sooner than later would be my preference, because I think schools need some certainty in their funding levels as they prep for the next school year. So we'll look forward to doing it sooner than later.
Before June 1st, when the layoff notices have to go out?
That's going to be difficult, but that would be my preference, but it probably will be a little bit difficult to get it before June 1st.
Mr. Speaker, in your bid to avert a veto, have you or will you commit to some sort of pre-negotiated deal passing early in 2016 that has additional education money?
I would commit to that. I would, if the governor will sign this bill that we have sent him, which I think is a good bill. It had really broad bipartisan support in the legislature. It puts new money into classrooms. If the governor would sign this bill, which I think would give school districts some certainty as they prep for the next school year, and hopefully it would save them from issuing layoff notices on June 1st. I would hate for school districts and school employees to receive layoff notices because the governor vetoes this bill. That would be not, it would be my preference if that didn't happen. If we can do it as soon as possible thereafter, I think that would be the best. I would commit to the governor that the offer that we had on the table of an extra $100 million, that would be the first bill we would pass out next session. I'm assuming that because we've left some significant resources on the bottom line, that we'll have available resources to do that at the beginning of the next session. And we can certainly address his concerns about early childhood education at that time as well.
Mr. Speaker, you say that you hope you can pick up where you left off here as this heads into a special session. The governor says, basically back to square one, and that he may insist on pre-K. Is there anything that you'll put back on the table, whether they be, last in, first out, tax cuts?
I think we're going to pick up where we left off. If the governor wants to start from square one on education, I don't know that the governor actually objects to anything that's in our bill. His veto letter didn't indicate that he had any objection to anything that was actually in our bill. It kind of indicated that he wants to veto it because it doesn't include some of his other initiatives. The fact that he doesn't object to anything in it leads me to believe that we probably don't need to start from square one. I think the governor realizes that the pre-K right now is going to be a heavy lift for him. Not because it isn't a great initiative and that we don't care about those kids. It's just that legislators, both Republicans and Democrats, prefer to put money on the formula and let school districts decide how to spend it. It's kind of a local control issue, and we feel like that's the best use of education dollars, is put them on the formula and let school districts make that decision. So the governor had 5 months to earn the legislative support and earn the votes for his initiative. Again, it didn't pass the House, it didn't pass the Senate, and it's going to be, I think, a heavy lift to accomplish that in the next, let's say, 30 days, if it wasn't able to happen in the last 5 months.
Is there anything else that you'll put back on the table, or are you going to start from the kind of the
We
framework?
really want to just start where we left off. Let's wrap this thing up. Let's give the school districts the certainty they need. Let's give them this new money. Let's put this new money into their classrooms and let them do the great job that they do educating our kids.
Speaker, you're about ready to head out to Greater Minnesota. You've talked a lot about, you used to talk a lot about Greater Minnesota anyway when you started. Are you doing enough, other than the nursing home? Did you do enough on workforce training, workforce housing, broadband? Have you fulfilled promises or expectations there?
Absolutely. There are a lot of initiatives in our budget bills that are directed at Greater Minnesota, and for good reason. This isn't to pit Greater Minnesota against the metro area. What has happened over the course of the last couple of years is, as Minnesota has recovered from, Minnesota's economy has recovered, the metro area, frankly, has recovered faster, and the economy has recovered to a healthier state in the metro area than it has in Greater Minnesota. So folks at Greater Minnesota are struggling a little more than folks in the metro. So we want to make sure that we recognize that and provide them with some tools. And
Can you do specifics?
There are some workforce housing dollars. There are a lot of economic development dollars directed in our bills, and quite a few different bills at them. This nursing home, which has been the nursing home funding reform issue, which has been kind of my own personal top priority, which we did accomplish. And I don't think folks thought we were going to get it done. I'm just thrilled that we got it done. We got it funded 100%. This is something that will make an unbelievable difference for our long-term care facilities, and particularly in greater Minnesota. In a lot of communities, it isn't just about taking care of our aging loved ones. It's also, in many of these smaller towns, these long-term care facilities are the largest employer. They are now going to be able to pay their employees a more competitive wage and something that's going to help them support their family in a better way. And we just think it's a win for everybody. But what a phenomenal initiative, and we're really, really proud of that. And I'm personally super proud of that particular initiative. Other questions? Very good. Thank you so much.